OK, folks, now coming up on the show very shortly is Conservative MP Mr Tim Loughton. I'm delighted that Tim is joining me today. Mr Loughton is said to be in a band of some 40 backbenchers who are upset that the new lockdown rules, which were introduced this week, have just been waved through rather too easily, and that maybe there should be a bit more debate going on in the House of Commons before we vary the freedom and the liberties on the life of people in this country. We'll be talking to Mr Loughton about that very shortly, OK? And what I want to find out is this. I want to find out whether enough is being done from Downing Street. I want to find out in particular whether or not we are losing faith in Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister. Now, when I say we, I'm talking about me as a voter, right? An individual, a citizen. Am I losing faith in the Prime Minister and his ability to carry off this crisis? More to the point, are the gentlemen of Parliament, the MPs that we have sitting in Westminster, and those certainly on the government side, are they losing faith? Because there was a very interesting chapter of events in the Commons this week, wasn't there? When, first of all, Boris Johnson announced the new partial close down, 10 o'clock closing for pubs, restaurants, and that's going to do an awful lot of more damage to the entertainment industry, not the entertainment, but certainly the catering industry, pubs, restaurants, you name it. Followed by Mr Sunak, Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, who tried to deliver some good news, certainly to further support the ailing economy, but also telling us that we've got to learn to live without fear. 3 vital words which came from him, but not from the Prime Minister. At that time, the Prime Minister was 60 miles away at a police station carrying out some sort of prime ministerial duty. Many think that it would have been more appropriate had he been in the House of Commons sitting along his Chancellor, and therefore those words would have been endorsed by the Prime Minister who's there. However, I'm told by those who know these things that Mr Sunak could not have said that had he not cleared it with the Prime Minister, and therefore Boris Johnson was giving a sort of silent nod and a wink that yes, that's the sort of language you've got to have, but maybe it wasn't for him to say. Why is that then? Is that because Mr Johnson, the Prime Minister, is torn between the science? You saw the scientific experts turning up at Downing Street this week, looking very glum, carrying a couple of files and then telling everybody that, we've got to watch it. We could be heading towards a second wave and all that. Next minute, we've got further lockdowns. Could it be that Mr Johnson is between a rock and a hard place, the rock being the scientists and the hard place, of course, being the economy? And is it Mr Johnson's prime job as chairman of this country, i.e. Prime Minister, the man who makes the final decisions, to actually weigh up the various weights of opinion that come from experts and from his Chancellor and from the Health Secretary about how people are going to cope being locked up at home and missing appointments in hospitals, and his Education Secretary about the effect it has on schools, not just the children, but their parents and their parents' ability to send their children to school? Hasn't that all got to be pulled together? Hasn't that got to be pulled together so that actually we make a decision which is rather more widespread than just saying, oh, well, health's got to come first? If health comes first and it's only health, so much more of the country, the economy and everything the economy supports, in my opinion, will be completely knackered. So I want you to start thinking about giving me a call, please. As I say, Mr Loughton's coming on in a minute, the Conservative MP for East Worthing and Shoreham, and a member of the Home Affairs Select Committee. But as Mr Loughton is talking to me, as we discuss these vital issues, please think about giving me a bell. And you can call us on 0344 499 1000. 0344 499 1000. I want you to give me a call here. And the question that I'm really asking you is, have you lost faith in Boris Johnson's leadership? OK? You might say, well, is that too bland a question? It's not too bland a question because, look, we all have to look at and interpret the political landscape, OK? And the political landscape at the moment has changed so dramatically, I should say, since Boris Johnson got into power that you can barely believe it. I cannot remember, certainly in my lifetime, and a week is a long time in politics, as Harold Wilson famously once said, I can't remember the political landscape changing so dramatically in such a short period of time. Mr. Johnson got in with an 80-seat majority. You remember the picture of him on the night he got in, leaping out of his seat with his partner Carrie at his side and celebrating the fact that he had a huge majority in the House of Commons and set on a libertarian path of trying to further improve the economy, make all our lives better, pursue some policies that he'd outlined in his election campaign, including, of course, Brexit, which, again, another issue which is coming very close now to a resolution one way or the other. And then within weeks, having to consider a completely different set of circumstances, those set of circumstances being, of course, that we suddenly had a pandemic upon our hands. Many will have said that we should have coped with it better because we should have recognised it earlier and we should have taken certain conditions to actually get something going before we were pushing to get it going, i.e. were we far too reactive to the situation that suddenly, bang, leapt up in front of our faces? Should we have done something sooner? Or should we, ever since then, have perhaps not have reacted so strongly? I mean, you look at the figures now, and it's absurd in my view that we are now having to go back to a situation which brought so much misery and so much debilitating harm to the economy when actually we got over the worst. At the height of the pandemic outbreak, I'm talking about March and April this year, which, seems like a long time ago now, but it's not. It's only a few months. And there were up to 100,000 people who were catching the COVID-19 virus each day, okay? We didn't have any testing at the time. We didn't have any ability to rack up those numbers. But according to the experts now, it could have been up to 100,000 a day. At the moment, we're down to below 10,000 a day. So you have to ask yourself, why have we suddenly gone into another set of lockdowns? Why has that happened, okay? Do you realise that if you look at it mathematically, only about 0.01% of the population of this great country of ours is at the moment affected by pandemic? That's not people who are in any way dying. It might not even be people who are being admitted to hospital. It's people affected by it in the sense that they might be self-isolating, they might have had it, they might have been advised that they should shield themselves, but it's such a tiny number. Is that reason, folks, really, to say, close the pubs at 10 o'clock, close the restaurants, okay? To curb our liberties once again. On the 10 o'clock issue anyway, I can't see what possible difference it can make to close a pub at 10 o'clock, say on a Friday night or a Saturday night tonight. People will just go out earlier. People will perhaps switch from going out in the evening to going out during the daytime, going out for lunch, going out for a late lunch or something like that. But I can't find anybody anywhere who can give me an example of the virus having been passed on to anybody inside a pub. It may have happened, but if it has, I haven't heard about it, okay? I've been into about half a dozen public houses since lockdown was lifted and the pub started reopening. And I do have to say, I think that particular industry is doing a fantastic job in being able to control the circumstances in which their customers are operating. So, for instance, you're stopped at the door. You're asked to wear a face mask while you go from the door to where your table is, because now it's table service only. You fill in a form, or you scan the app, or you order from the app that is given to you by the pub you're in, and there's minimal human contact. And you know what? I filled in all the forms for the last, 2 months or something like that, and I haven't had a call back from anybody, I'm delighted to say. So that means that in all those pubs I've been in, where, all the details have been given over, people have my phone number, they have your postcode, they have the ability to contact you through the app, the pub app. I haven't had any calls, which I'm delighted about, obviously. I mean, I've told you this story before, and it's absolutely true. I think if there was going to be a problem with anybody in society, I could be a prime candidate. I'm a man of a certain age. I carry a little bit of extra timber, but, not too much. And, of course, I've had the old dodgy ticker a few years back, which I've had to deal with. And do you know what? I would have thought that if it's, vulnerable people that the virus is looking for, I may have been unlucky by now, but I haven't been unlucky, and I think that's for two reasons. Firstly, I think the public houses, as I've said already, are really looking after their customers in a most remarkable way, cleaning the tables every time somebody gets up and leaves, wearing masks, distancing themselves. But the other thing I've done is I have been extremely careful. I have self-distance. I have stayed at home when it's not been necessary to go out. If I travel on public transport, I'm extremely aware of the people around me, and I keep my distance on a train or on a bus. If I get into a taxi, I put a mask on my face. I make sure the driver wears a mask. I even carry wipes around with me. And I was in a car the other day which had to take me into work. It's about a 35-minute journey. And I took the wipes and I wiped the chairs I was sitting in. I wiped the seats. I wiped the handle of the door. I wiped everything I possibly could. So what I'm saying is another way of doing all this, not now to have to impose these 10 o'clock curfews and all that kind of stuff, but to say, look, we've got to trust people to do it themselves. So few people are now affected. What we should do is we should concentrate on a core of people in society who really need looking after. So they shield, they are protected, they are encouraged to self-isolate, but the rest of us must now go out and get on with our life. I'm not talking about being reckless. I'm not talking about the fact that, look, just lift all the restrictions and get out there and see what happens. There's an argument against that, well, you'd then overwhelm the National Health Service. I don't think we will, because the National Health Service didn't get overwhelmed the first time round when, as I say, there were up to 100,000 people a day catching it. The Nightingale hospitals, great idea, and whipped up very, very quickly by the army and the military. Fantastic asset, but hardly used. So I don't believe that it would suddenly cause a huge explosion of infections. Okay, you could say, well, how do you know? I don't, but nobody knows. And remember, there could be no end to this. There's no guarantee we're going to get a vaccine. If we do get a vaccine, it might be a partial vaccine. And the point is that how long are we going to live in this limbo? I think we've got to be more bold. If I was the Prime Minister, I would not have gone back to additional lockdowns, to additional embargoes, to additional closing down of businesses which need customers as their lifeblood. I frankly would have looked at the situation between my medical experts and my Chancellor, and I'd have said, right, I think the medics have had a good run on this, and we've done most of what they said, and we've tried to bring the country to an even keel. But now we've really, really, really got to concentrate on getting the economy straight. Okay, folks, so look, that was just my point of view, putting it forward to you.